Matt, you know I'm a chafer. I've had some chafing issues with my running over
Yes,
the past.
you've famously chafed and poison ivied and all kinds of things
Yeah,
we don't need to know more about.
lots of stuff down there, but
Yeah.
I'm running into a new problem
Uh-oh.
of late. The
Okay.
last few weeks.
Do we want to know it, or should we just spare
Well,
everybody and move on to the
it's
next
less
topic?
maybe less in not suitable for work
Okay. Okay.
than the poison ivy conversation.
Okay.
Um, I've been for the first time, really, maybe since like middle school or high school cross country. I've been running without a shirt on,
All right.
and all of a sudden, I was like, I went on a longer run the other day, feeling great. It was at night. It was a little bit rainy and sticky and hot, and maybe like halfway through the long run, I started chafing underneath my armpits,
Oh yeah.
and I've never ever had that problem before. And it got really bad. Like it got incredibly painful. I was like running, with my arms like sticking out like a chicken. Have you ever
You
had
know,
that?
I have had that before, and I've gotten it from running with the shirt on before. I
Oh,
think
really?
I think it happens to me when my shirt gets wet, like from rain.
Okay.
I'm not positive
Yeah.
about that, but I definitely had that when I get in the shower, and then I realized that that area hurts, like behind your
Okay.
back, under your arms.
Well,
Yeah.
I'm the guy who's liberally applying lubricant all over all over my
Yeah.
body, but I've never had that problem under the armpits before.
I think the bigger story here, Doug, is that you're running without a shirt on because that I mean, I do that every now and then, like
Uh-huh.
if it's really hot or if I'm in the right conditions. I'm away from civilization or something, but I just don't like, I don't know. Nothing to do with fitness or anything like that. It's just, I just don't like being the guy running without a shirt on. I don't know what it is. It just seems strange.
Well, so I've been running. I'll tell you how it started. I've been running a lot in at night after the girls go down, and so it's dark out, or it's pretty much dark out. And a couple weeks ago, it was pouring down rain, and I was like, I'm not. Why wear a shirt that I know is going to get soaked immediately, and
Mm-hmm.
uh, and then just become uncomfortable? I was like, why don't I just go with no shirt on? And then I started doing it, and it felt great. I was really
Mm-hmm.
happy with with how it felt, and then I was like, maybe I should keep doing this. And then I did that long run, and I started chafing, and so now I'm kind of backpedaling and wondering if I should stop.
Right. Well, I wish I could do that. I think it's a good thing to just. I mean, who cares what people think, right? If it feels good, do
Yeah,
it. Good
yeah,
for you.
yeah, definitely. How are you doing?
We're good. We're just kind of in a holding pattern, waiting to move into our new house, and we had to like it was such a stretch to like put together money for a down payment and everything that now we have like no money for the next 4 months. So we have just like we're in this apartment we don't like, and it's like well, no, we can't spend any money. We just need to chill and exist for 4 months somehow.
uh-huh.
So we're just I don't know. I'm thinking of different ways we can pass the time instead because I always like to go out on even on weeknights. I just like to go get a
Uh-huh.
drink or get dinner or whatever.
Yeah,
So
especially because we work from home. I'm the same way, and when you're at home all day, it feels good to leave because otherwise you could go days without ever leaving the property.
right. So we're doing, I'm watching a few more movies and stuff, trying to cook a little bit more. And my daughter, actually, Ellery, has gotten into, she's always been kind of into cooking. She's been like my pasta assistant all the time. But
Hmm.
she recently, we watched Julie and Julia, that movie about the cooking project blogger,
Yep.
which was actually funny because I could keep giving her examples of like, hey, that happened to Noe Athlete at one point, like when the book agent called and said we want to publish your book and all these like cool like highlights and stuff. I was like, we've had that happen because a lot, it's watching a blog get off the ground
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
and and then so she made pasta that night all by herself, my daughter, and I sort of supervised, but she made homemade pasta, which I think is amazing. And then she watched Chef yesterday, which is that good movie about the food truck guy, I forget his name. And
Oh yeah. Uh-huh.
yeah, so we did, previously inspired by Chef, we made Cuban sandwiches one time, cubanos, and we're gonna do that again with seitan, of
What was
course.
the okay? Yeah, seitan.
Seitan, and then you need a ham also, so we get a vegan ham slices, seitan, mustard, pickles,
Why
you
do you
know
need ham? I don't even know what a cubano is.
it's I think it's traditionally would be like shaved pork marinated in mojo sauce, and
Hmm.
then ham slices are also on the bread, and then it is kind of pressed in a on a plancha, like a panini press kind of deal without the lines.
Yep.
So it's just like this pressed sandwich that has pickles, and it's just so good. So we're gonna be making those sometime soon.
Great. Well,
Yes.
we have a fun episode today. We have another secret guest that you don't know about this time. I arranged it,
Mhm.
but we got on a little early, so we're kind of killing time.
That's all right. I like the secret guest idea because today I realized we have found a way somehow miraculously to prepare even less for No Athlete radio episodes. Because
If you're not
I
the
was
host, then there's like you literally have nothing to do.
right. Like I just today I was getting ready for the episode and I'm always like at least thinking a little bit about what we're gonna say. This time I was like, oh, nothing. Just
Yeah. Yet somehow people still listen. At least we think
yes.
so.
I think I realized maybe we're kind of a guilty pleasure show because I have some guilty pleasure radio shows that I will listen to still, podcasts and radio shows, and I know they don't. But see, I feel like if we're the guilty pleasure, then we're doing a pretty good job of being a guilty pleasure because I think we still have a good wholesome message that could teach you things and influence you positively. Whereas the ones I listen to, they have no really redeeming value other than entertainment.
Yeah. Well, our guest has arrived. Should we let him in?
Let's do it. I know who that guest is.
Yeah, you do. Jeffrey Binney.
Jeffrey Binney, comedian turned ultra runner.
Yeah.
Hey y'all, what's up?
Hey, how's it going?
Oh, just dandy.
Long time.
I know, it's been a while. What have y'all been up to?
Pretty much the same thing when we last talked to you. I mean, it really is. The podcast is no different, really. It's just same old. How about you? I mean, ultra running, comedian, stand-up comedy.
Yeah. I guess hold on. Let's give you a proper intro here. This is Jeffrey Binney. He is an ultra runner. He is a filmmaker and director. I think you directed the film yourself, right? Of Once Is Enough.
Almost everything.
You're a comedian. You're an Instagram star, and you know you're just and a plant-based athlete, of course, and an all-around awesome guy. And so we're excited to have you back on the episode. We had you on. I think it was like long before, like maybe right when you were first starting the Once Is Enough project.
Yeah,
and I think that the film didn't actually come out for a while after that.
5 years is how long it took.
Okay,
5 long years.
5 years later.
Yeah.
All right, so I need to be filled in on the story because I don't know much about Once Is Enough. I think I remember mention of filmmaking when we last had you on. I only in the past couple months have I gotten on social media again, so I apologize for not being up on social media things at all. But I'd love to hear what this is. Is this about ultra running? Because that sounds like a Once Is Enough kind of title.
Yeah, it is. My mom passed away of heart disease, and I was 100 pounds heavier than I am now. And I was kind of desperate, I was very desperate to not end up in the same situation. And I wasn't in a great place. My mom and I were really close, and I really kind of struggled for a while after she passed. And all I wanted to do was disappear into the mountains to run and write jokes. And one of my friends suggested maybe there was a more positive way to to combine those things into some sort of creative project, and they were right. So I had the idea to set a ridiculous goal of running a 100-miler, film it, and then write my first hour stand-up set about the whole experience, and then slam those two things together into a docu-comedy. I don't know if that's an actual genre or not, but that's what we've been calling it.
That's super interesting.
And it wasn't just any 100-miler. It was the Leadville 100, which is an epic, storied 100-miler that it's kind of one of those. A lot of people like. I mean, I think it's one of, because of Born to Run, it's probably one of those that a lot of people first hear about for the first time. But it's not,
and it's also one of the few big ones that I don't know if it does now, but when I did it, it didn't require a qualifier, so that was nice as a newbie. I dove headfirst into trail running. I actually discovered it in the waiting room of the hospital. At the end of her life, she was in the ICU for 3 months, and I essentially lived in the waiting room, and they had a subscription to Trail Runner magazine, and I started picking it up and reading it, and thought that kind of sounded fun. And we had a particularly bad hospital day one day, and I coped by going out, buying some running shoes, and finding a state park, and going for a run, and I instantly was just hooked. So I did a 20-miler 3 months after she passed away, and then a 50K, and then I had the idea of like, is there a way that I could run 100-miler? So I set a 50-miler as my kind of like litmus test goal. If it went well, if I finished it, if I still enjoyed it, then I could commit to 100-miler. And I did it. I don't know that it went well, but I finished it and I enjoyed it. So then I made the silly commitment to run 100-miler.
Wow. I remember Leadville. I don't think you had done it when we had you on before, but now,
Yeah.
yeah, I'm pretty sure. Yeah, look, I'm just looking back at yeah, it's okay. So we were talking about the documentary then, but yeah, I don't think you had done it yet. So okay, so I mean, Leadville's a tough one. I mean, it's interesting that it used to be that there was no qualification, because that's one I know of people who try to run it and fail, which happens in a lot of races, but I think it's probably a particularly high DNF rate. So, I mean, it was a success, I'm guessing. I mean, it happened.
No, not at all. Film spoiler. So if you want to see the film and you don't like spoilers, stop,
man.
go watch the film.
I don't know if I should listen to
finish this podcast. I got to the top of Hope Pass. I think it was like 16 or 17 minutes after the time cut off and got pulled. It was like doubly disappointing. I mean, obviously there's the usual disappointment of DNFing, but there was also the whole film component. I mean, not only was the whole project writing on this one day or this, 2 days, I spent so much money to fly and house and feed crew. My family had came from Missouri halfway across the continent to watch. And that was the stuff that was really tough. I mean, because we were promoting the film, I had blasted it from the rooftops on social media. And that was the hard part. I actually kind of dealt with my own failure relatively well. I knew it was a possibility. And I really took a lot of pride in the fact that I didn't quit, and I still felt good. I mean, considering I was at, what is that, mile 44 or something like that. I could have kept going. I wanted to keep going, but yeah, all the other stuff. I mean, on social media, I had a tracker set up so people could follow me, and the next day reading the comments that are all so supportive and excited, and you see them slowly transition to, has anyone, I think it's not working. It's not updating. It looks like he's stopped in this spot. Does anyone know what's going on? And then of course my family, they didn't care, but just such a big sacrifice that they made to give up a week to come support me, and it didn't work out. And then the film, I was like, it's done. I don't even know if we're going to finish this. What an anticlimactic moment. But I was training with Ian Sharman, and he convinced me. He gave me a couple months to settle and feel my feels, and then he convinced me to give it another shot. So I signed up for the Rocky Raccoon in Texas, which is much more flat, a much better candidate for your first 100-miler. And I finished it. It went well. Awesome. It went really well. Well, I don't know that it went really well. I fell and fractured a rib. I rolled it, I think, 8 minutes before the time cut off, but I finished it. So I'll consider that.
You got that buckle though, man, and that's all that matters.
Yeah,
it is. Really. I know. And they have a last ass award, is what they call it. The last person who comes over the finish line before the time cut off. And I was hoping for that, but unfortunately, actually, I think no, he finished a little before me. I don't know if he still holds it, but when I did it, there was a guy who was trying to set the Guinness Book World Record for the largest person to finish a 100-mile race.
Wow.
It was really interesting. I need to look him up. He reached out to me after the film came out. I need to get back in touch with him. He was a really interesting guy. And it was interesting to see the process. We're really kind of getting off topic here, but everything had to be documented. Every second of it had to be documented on video in order for Guinness to, accept it. So he had people running with him, all 30 hours with a camera. He had people pacers changing out to film. Anyway, Leadville was not a success, but finally got one under my belt a few months later.
Was it? Well, I mean, congratulations. That's awesome, and I'm so glad that there is a happy ending.
Mhm.
Did that make it into the film, or was it the film already done? Oh,
Yeah.
that part did. Okay, great.
Yeah, no, definitely. Yeah.
Okay.
And I
Was
think
that
oh, go ahead.
well? Maybe my question will go into your answer anyway. Was it? I mean, finishing a 100 miler, a first 100 miler is an emotional experience anyway. Not to mention just what you go through in the course of getting done. But so like having done it after a failure and a sort of spectacular failure, given that you had all this attention and everything else invested in it, was it just incredible to finish? Like, was it I mean, I guess you wouldn't have anything to compare it to, but was it just the greatest moment of your life sort of thing? Or was it just like, okay, now I checked that off and I can move on?
Yeah, I think it in some ways it was. I mean, yeah, it was definitely huge. I think it was more once I like the next day, I think was when I really got to kind of marinate in it and appreciate it and celebrate it. At the end, I was it wasn't at all what I expected it to be. You know, I used as a motivator on so many training runs, imagining what it was going to be like when I crossed the finish line.
Mm-hmm.
And it wasn't that at all. I mean, Rocky Raccoon is a really fun race because it's a smaller race. So, you know, the finish line is not a grand, a grand arch with like townspeople cheering for you. It's just, you know, your family and some other people's family, like at the edge of a trail, Texas State Park.
Yeah.
So there's that component. And then I think, you know, your brain gets so weird when you get, into those last hours of an ultra, or at least mine does. And I felt a little like numb almost, like my brain was just kind of like, I just wanted to shut off and go to sleep. So yes and no, I guess, is the short answer. I think part of what made it so much fun the next day was that I had kept it a total secret because of all the extra embarrassment from Leadville of social media and all of my friends. I brought one crew person, bless his heart. He did camera, audio, everything. I was like, we don't have the budget, and I'm not flying a bunch of people here when this probably isn't going to work out. I was such a like negative Nancy about it. I was like, yeah, we're going to go do it. I don't know, guys, like no expectations. I'll run as far as I can run. I told my family and a friend who came to pace me, and then I think 2 other friends knew. So that was really rewarding the next day to wake up and be able to get on Facebook, get on Instagram, and say, "Hey, y'all, you'll never believe what I did yesterday."
That's awesome. So I, you know how I think probably every ultra runner experienced this when the Barkley Marathons movie came out a couple years ago. Anytime someone heard you were like a trail runner or an ultra runner, like they're like, "Oh, I saw this movie about Barkley. Is that the kind of races you run, or when are you going to run that?" And it's like anybody who didn't know anything about that world wanted to like relate with you, about, they wanted to talk to you about that. And then Once Is Enough came out, and the same thing happened, but in a very different way. It was like, I can't even tell you. I probably had a dozen people tell me, I saw this movie about this guy, this comedian who ran a 100-miler, and it made me actually go out and start running. And like, now I'm trying to figure out this trail running thing. And like that literally happened many times. So Jeff, cool. I'm not just blowing smoke up your butt. Like that's a real thing. It's awesome that you had that reach to people.
Yeah. I mean, it's been so, not that I didn't know that there were plenty of me out there, but I've really been blown away by how many unconventional runners, I'll call them, are out there who, don't feel comfortable at a lot of starting lines of races. They don't, not that they don't feel welcome or anything, it's all like internal stuff. But yeah, it's been so cool. I can't tell you how many amazing messages I've gotten from people just saying something similar. Like, oh, I never would have had the cojones to like go try this. I did it, and now I'm loving it. Thank you. I think that's probably the most rewarding part of the whole process, is getting to enjoy that. It feels like the 5 years and hours of training might have been worth it.
Yeah. Who I was looking at your Amazon and realizing it's on Prime Video, right? I can just watch it for free. Is that correct?
Yeah.
So I'm gonna watch that. Totally. My wife is training for her first ultra. my kids will be into this. It's kid friendly, right? Kid friendly. Yeah, 16 plus. That's good. They watch that.
It's like a naughty middle school humor is where
Perfect.
it's as bad as it gets.
It's exactly our genre.
Yeah, I always say I don't tell any jokes that my mom wouldn't approve of, but my mom was a pretty saucy lady, so take from that what you will.
Good. So because I was doing that, I missed what you said about somebody not feeling welcome at the start line. What type of people doesn't feel welcome or don't feel welcome?
I think a lot of not necessarily unwelcome. That probably isn't the right word. I think a lot of bigger people just bigger people. Okay. I mean, I noticed it at Leadville. It was dark. I didn't notice it at the Rocky Raccoon, but at Leadville, I looked around and I was I couldn't see anyone who wasn't like a more stereotypical, pretty fit, thin, like an athlete, you know? And I kind of don't really give a shit about that kind of stuff. I don't know if I can curse. You might have to edit that out. But so I was fine. But I mean, someone who, you know, isn't as confident, like what I would, you know, could have felt so out of place. And I've had so many people say that they prefer to do their own runs. They don't like love organized runs just because of that. Again, like nothing anyone is doing or anything. I think it's just, you know, you don't, it's impossible to miss that you're, you know, one of, if not the only like person of size at the starting line.
Right. That makes sense.
Do you think that's changing? It seems like, I don't know. It seems like there are several, you know, unconventional running or body type people who are making a splash on social media and other things that, you know, that, I don't know. It seems like maybe that's starting to change.
I think it's changing very quickly. Yes.
Yeah.
I think, yeah, exactly what you just said. I think there's a lot more of me out there now. And so I think it's making people a lot more comfortable. And, you know, a lot of people like probably wouldn't even try. I mean, I have a habit of doing or trying to do things that I shouldn't be able to do, whether it, you know, I mean, grew up on a pig farm in Missouri. Like it made no sense for me to move to New York and pursue acting, but that's what I did. It made no sense for like a 340-pound husky ginger to, you know, try to run 100-miler, but that's what I did. But a lot of people, you know, they don't like to take risks like that. So I think it's becoming a lot more comfortable to have these crazy ideas in ultra running.
No, that is a very good thing. I mean, I think I don't know the ultra community now so well, but when I was running ultras, it seemed like one of the coolest groups of supportive people you could find. And I remember when there were people who were larger running ultras who I remember that it was more a feeling of kind of like respect, because that it just means you're carrying more weight, you're doing more work than everybody else. And that was sort of, I don't know, there was never any sort of judgment, but
I don't think so either. I think most of the judgment people feel, if not all of it, is from themselves.
Right. Yeah, of course.
Which is sometimes the hardest kind of judgment to deal with, isn't it? But yeah, no, the trail running community, I mean, you know, no shade thrown at the road running community, but the trail running community is so funky and welcoming. It's such a fun, you know, fireball shots at the last aid station, station workers in costumes. You know, it's a really, really fun community to be a part of, for sure.
Yeah, which I mean makes sense, because if, like you said, if the finish line is a couple of your family members out in the trail run instead of this glorious, you know, thing where you get a medal put around your neck and all, it's like if someone's in it, if they're going to work that hard for that kind of reward, then, you know, their motivation for doing it. Not that it's always the most pure motivation for sure, but like at least you eliminate the big, I'm going to do this because I want everyone to praise me and, you know, make me feel like I am the center of attention for a little while. Although I guess social media changes that, because we can still go post that on social media if we want.
Yeah. I don't know. I enjoy being the center of attention.
Yeah, who doesn't, you know?
Right. Well,
speaking of center of attention, no, just kidding. Stand-up comedy or comedy in general. That is probably like stand-up comedy. Well, okay. Public speaking is definitely something that makes me uneasy, period. going up and trying to entertain somebody just as yourself and tell jokes, and not just like good stories that, you know, can kind of captivate people, but actual jokes to make people laugh, is probably the most terrifying thing that I can think of. How did you get into stand-up comedy, and is it really as bad as people think it is, or as intimidating?
Yeah, no, it is. It really is. The first, so I was living in New York. I was working in theater, acting, and I was with a show, an awesome show, but I was with the same show for a little over 2 years, and I was pretty burnt out, to be honest, when I got back from tour, and so I started taking improv classes, and I think that was the most terrifying. Because I was a musician as a kid, but I was like classically trained pianist, like had to have the music in front of me. Like it blows my mind, people who just hear a song and like, I mean, you know, I played piano since I was 5 and that still is astonishing to me. So like a very structured pianist. Same like with acting, you know, I had, you know, as an actor, you have a script, you have weeks and weeks of rehearsal, you know exactly where you're standing, at what point, at what time. So it's just terrifying, the idea of improv. And I remember like I would be sick to my stomach before classes. I would talk myself out of going. But the more you do it, the better it gets, the less terrifying it gets. And I think improv was really, I would suggest everyone in the world take improv classes. It doesn't matter what you do. If you ever speak to anyone, anywhere, doesn't have to be public. Like if you just have meetings at work, you will benefit from improv classes, because by the time I got comfortable with improv, I felt so like powerful on stage. I really had a sense that like literally anything could happen. The set could fall down, like someone's clothes could fall off, and like it would be fine. Like we just figure it out and it would be fine. And that kind of confidence as a very structured performer was really life-changing for me. And so I decided to give stand-up a try, because I was just as terrified, if not more terrified, of stand-up. And it's hard and it's painful. I mean, I've never had a heckler, knock on wood. I've never had a heckler, but even the best comedians bomb. Like even the best comedians will have a bad show. And it's what I love about stand-up, and what is so painful about stand-up is that you're in control of everything. You're in control of what you wore, what you said, how you said it. So when you succeed, when you have a really great show, it's so rewarding because it's all you. Like you are responsible for everything. But when you bomb, the opposite is true. It's still all you. Like it's all, what did you do wrong? It's all, you know, it's all your responsibility. There's no one else to blame. You can't blame the costumer. You can't blame the orchestra or the director. It was you. So yeah, it's terrifying. You finally get, there's a reason why comedians always have a very like F you attitude. And it's because you kind of really have to. You have to get to the point where you can get up on stage, tell people that jokes that you've put your heart and soul into writing, have them not react or even boo you. You have to be able to walk off stage after that and go, all right, here's some things I can learn from it, but middle finger and move on. You cannot, you can't get damaged by it. But it leaves comedians sometimes a little jaded.
Yeah.
I mean, that does sound terrifying. And I hear a lot of people who, maybe not a lot, I've heard of people who get into it precisely for that challenge, because it seems like the most terrifying thing you can do, and to have to learn to do it is a huge thing. Do you, like, when not improv, when it's just you're doing your routine, like how come there can be a bad show? Because don't you know exactly the routine you're going to do ahead of time, and so maybe you're just not on with your timing and everything, or the audience isn't getting it, or what?
Yeah, I think that's the magic of live performance, is that every show is different. I mean, not that I didn't already know it, but when I was with that show that I mentioned for 2.5 years, it was really, really well illustrated in our audiences. On Friday and Saturday nights, was usually pretty raucous. Just great audience, lots of energy, lots of laughs. Sunday matinees are every theater actor's like nightmare, because it's usually seniors, and they're just not as engaged. They're not. Sometimes a lot of times they're sleeping, but it really like starkly illustrates how much difference there can be, just between Saturday night's show and the next show 14 hours later. So I think there are differences, I've seen actor or comedians, like have too many drinks before, and it gives you courage, but it makes you a little sloppy, and you're not as sharp, and your set just isn't as good. Not for all comedians, but I've had it happen before. I've gotten off stage and I'm like, ugh, I think I should have had one less gin and tonic. I felt a little like out of control. But then the audience is, a huge difference as well. I'm gay. There are like audiences that, if you've got a group of 10, 12, 15 people who have feelings about that, then you've got, a quarter of your audience they're not engaged. They're not, they're totally over it. My comedy isn't really controversial. I think that's probably why I've never been heckled. All of my comedy is usually about me and self-effacing. So I think that spares me a lot of that. But, that's why those comedians that are dealing with political issues or, or trash talking, celebrities or politicians, that's why they get heckled and end up with those rough shows. Sometimes it's great if you've got a like-minded audience,
right?
But it just takes one bachelor party who doesn't agree with you to bring down your show.
It almost seems like improv would be easier, because then you have this excuse of like, yeah, but we didn't prepare anything. We're just doing all this off the cuff. So like, if it doesn't work, I don't know. I think that's cool though. I think, I've never done any improv, but there's a guy named Seth Godin. I mentioned him a lot. He's like a marketing guru kind of guy. But anyway, he writes about improv. And I think he writes about this idea, maybe you've heard of it, some exercise where you imagine a box in your head and then they say what's in the box, and there has to be something. But whatever the lesson is like, his lesson is, improv people learn that there is always something in the box. When they tell you to come up with the thing that's in the box, you eventually learn to rely and trust yourself that whenever there will always be something. It will never be just empty and you have nothing to say. But somehow I've kind of, I think, like backed into that confidence just from doing a bunch of podcasts and interviews and things. And I got over this fear of like, and even with public speaking, the fear that like you'll get caught there and stuck and there's nothing. And now it's like, it's this horrible moment. Somehow you eventually learn that like that won't ever happen. Like you get the confidence that there will always be something to say instead that can deflect or can distract or just, be a way of moving off this awkward thing. Okay. So you haven't heard it, but I think that's I don't know. I love the recommendation. I'd like to get my kids to do it.
Yeah.
And they can tell me how it goes.
Matt,
yeah.
have you ever seen bad improv? It's
No.
really bad.
I'm sure it's
so
horrible.
bad.
I think that's what makes it so scary, because bad improv is really painful to watch.
Yeah, exactly. I had some friends in DC who were like taking an improv class, and like at the end of it, they wanted to put together like a little improv show for all of us friends. So we like got over at somebody's house, had some drinks, and like did the show, and it was just like, it was awful. Like it was so bad, but it was good for them to try.
Yeah. Right.
It's fun because it's a game. It's that's what improv is. You and it gets fun and it gets good when you've learned the rules of the game, because then you can start breaking them in like artful, intelligent ways. And that's when like really, really magical stuff happens in an improv show. But yeah, exactly what you said, Matt. It's, one of the rules is make a choice. If you're blanking, you have no ideas, make a choice. I remember in one of my shows one time, I don't know why, but I totally blanked. And I don't know how my brain went there, but I sat down in a chair and I said that I was tatting. And it ended up being one of the best scenes. Do you know what tatting is? So not like tattooing. Like tatting is like like a Midwestern grandma, like embroidery kind of stuff. It's like really, really detailed, like doilies and things, tatting. And so the scene, like nobody knew what tatting was. And it was, it was such a small, stupid, random thing. But that lesson like really was burned into my brain after that, because I blanked, but I just sat down and made a strong, weird choice. And it was great. One of the best scenes that I think I ever had in improv.
That's awesome. So in prep for this call, I was on your website and I was watching you're a motivational speaker, right? You do motivational speaking.
Yeah, I mean, I wasn't, but some opportunities started popping up after the film, and I am just freaking loving it. I've always said, like, my comedy, I wanted it to be comedy with a purpose. So even if I was telling a poop joke, I wanted it to be part of a bigger, more substantial story, which I think the film probably illustrates well. There's lots of middle school humor, but it's all, the point of it is to tell a bigger story. I just totally blanked. What did you say?
There wasn't a question. It was a statement. I was getting to a question actually, which is at the end of your the little video kind of promoting your motivational speaking, which was very well done, by the way. I enjoyed it very much. You said that you follow a philosophy in life, or you have something that you repeat to yourself, which is you need to be smart enough to start, but dumb enough not to quit. And I was hoping you could elaborate on that a little bit.
I think that's just probably the biggest lesson that I have taken away from ultra running. I remember when I first started and first tried to push myself longer distances. And, when you get to that point where any normal, rational person would pack up and go home, like things start to hurt, you're hungry, you're dehydrated, any rational person would say, oh, well, this is obviously the time for me to stop and go home. Mm-hmm. If you don't, if you eat some food, if you drink some water, and if you just keep foolishly running or moving forward in some way, it turns out you can drink more water. I'm not saying dehydration isn't an issue, but you can drink more water. You can eat food. That ache in your ankle, it may be a bigger issue that you do need to stop, but there's a good chance that it's going to go away in a few miles. Something new will pop up. But I think that lesson was so valuable that if you just stubbornly refuse to quit, turns out you can do so much more than you thought you could. And that's where the magic happens, not only for yourself, but it's also, I was given that advice when I first started working on the film. Friend who's a much more experienced filmmaker said, it's a big decision. If you're going to move forward, do it, but you have to finish it. You have to finish the film, because 95% of people who start film projects don't finish them. He was like, if you just finish it, you will instantly set yourself apart from almost every other filmmaker who wants to make a film. But I think that applies to ultra running as well. I mean, just not quitting, sets you apart from the millions of people who run marathons, which is its own ridiculous achievement in its own right. But there's not a lot of people who can say, I ran 100 miles in 32 hours. Mm-hmm. So yeah, I've always said with ultra running, you just have to be smart enough to start, but dumb enough not to quit.
It sounds a lot like what we always thought. We haven't talked about it in a while, but we used to talk about it a lot. This idea of the dip, another Seth Godinism, where the thing is, if you everything that's worth doing is going to hit this point where it sucks. Shortly after your start, probably 20% of the way in, because that wears off the fact that it's new and fun and novel, and then you realize it's actually hard, and there's kind of no end in sight, and it's going to suck for a while. And so let's just realize that before we get into anything, and then make the decision right then that we're willing to push through that. And if we're not, then why start at all? Just don't get it. Like your friend said, don't get into the thing if you're not going to finish it, because it's going to get to the point where you don't want to finish it. You want it to stop. And I think that's such an important lesson that it just, it doesn't mean don't start things that are hard. It just means if you're going to do it, like make sure you're actually in it to do it. And otherwise just save yourself the time and pick something else.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of the things I talk about in one of my talks is, there's no way I could have truly imagined what the crappy times were going to be like. But I just over-researched ultra running. I talked to all the ultra runners I could find so that I knew what to expect, so that I could put things in place to help me not quit. Tell friends like, hey, there's going to be a time when I'm really going to want to stop doing this. And, if it's sincere and I have a good reason, fine. But like, just can you help me, move through that? There's so many ways that you can help yourself not quit before you ever want to quit. So I think, I've been a big idea kid since I was a little kid. And I always got, eye rolls and scoffs when I would share my ideas. One of my friends, I mentioned it in the film, but one of my friends who's a triathlete, when I first had the idea, I immediately went to him. I was like, oh, he's going to be so excited about this. Like, this is such a fun idea. Can't wait to tell him. And he was polite, but he like gave me a pretty big truth bomb. He was like, is that a good idea? Do you know? He was like, it's really hard. And I was like, yeah, no, I know it's hard. And he's like, no, it's really, really hard. Like, you're going to have to train like probably at least, at your fitness level, at least 12 months. Like, he was supportive, but he was just really, really cautious. And in the end, I look back, I'm like, well, it was actually really useful, because I was so angry with him. And to be quite frank, like, that fueled me a lot of times when I was wanting to quit. I was like, you know what? No, I have to freaking show him that he was wrong.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So thinking about this idea of dumb enough not to quit, when you didn't finish Leadville, like, that was the perfect excuse not to quit or to quit, to quit the film, like not make it, or to just say, okay, well, now the film's not going to have this like beautiful ending that I was anticipating, but maybe I'll transition it to something else, but and to never run another 100-miler again. But you went and you did it again, and you finished, and like to me, like that is the ultimate dip, and an excuse to stop, but you didn't do it.
Well, I think I was lucky to have a really good reason why I was doing it. I also think that, like, knowing your why is really important. Having a really good reason. It doesn't matter whether it's ultra running or starting that new business or, whatever crazy thing you're wanting to do. Having a really, really good reason, not just like, oh, I'd like to have a second income, or, oh, wouldn't it be fun to be able to say I ran 100 miles? You need to have a really good reason, because a lot of times that's what's going to get you through those really, really tough times. And I was really lucky to, have this project that was in honor of celebrating my mom to fuel me. I had a pretty serious bad attitude after the Leadville failure. But once I thought about it, like, I would have had to have dealt with so much like guilt, to be quite frank, if I had abandoned this project and not finished it. So I think I was lucky that I had sort of like the holy grail of whys. Like, I really like not finishing the film really wasn't an option. And to finish the film, I really needed to finish a 100-miler. So I think I was lucky in those things. Everyone keeps asking like, oh, are you gonna, what's your next film? And, to be honest, I'm really, really nervous and hesitant because, Once Is Enough has seen some success, which has been great, but I don't have another one of those stories to fuel me through another one of those projects right now. Like, that was probably one of the most difficult times of my life. I hope I don't have another story like that anytime too soon, but I'm a little worried. That I don't have any ideas that are as substantial as that idea was. I'm really having a hard time settling on, my next frontier.
I imagine that is probably pretty common. Like an author who writes their book that they've been, dreaming of their whole life, or their story, their personal story, and then you do it, and then it's a success. Like, what do you do next? How do you find that next massive thing? And I imagine it just kind of comes when it's ready to come.
It does.
That's
Yeah.
why like the band's second albums always suck, because they spend all this time writing it, and then they have to put out another one, and all they did was, since the last one, was tour a little bit, and then they have to do it, so it just nothing comes of it.
Yeah.
I'm excited to. I finally like gave up on pushing myself to commit to a new project, and now that clubs are opening back up, hopefully they stay open. We'll see. It seems like COVID's not moving in the right direction, but I'm excited this fall to just write and go perform without the stress of a project or needing to write on a specific topic. So I think you're right. I think I'm just gonna dive into that this fall, and something will present itself at the right time.
Yeah.
And so, what about ultra running? Will you do any more ultras, or is that it?
Yeah, I know I've done no more
you did more.
hundreds.
Okay.
But I've done quite a few 50Ks. I started this year with the goal to run an ultra per month all year. Mm-hmm. And I made it to May and then had I was just doing 50Ks. I did a 50K a month until May, and then had a terrible run. And an accidental business opportunity presented itself over the summer, which has ended up consuming my summer. And I just got super off track. And I don't know if I'll get them all done. I don't have any idea. I think that's, yet another lesson ultra running has gifted me with, is I used to put so much pressure. Like Jeffrey 5 years ago would be like freaking out, beating himself up, saying like, oh my gosh, I made this commitment, it's not working. And I've just learned to like, it's fine. Nobody cares. Nobody cares if I don't do it. And at the end of the day, it's probably more relatable and realistic that like, I struggled in the middle of the year with motivation and didn't finish it. I've learned to be so much kinder to myself in those kind of situations. So that was a long answer, but yes, still ultra running, no crazy distances. The whole goal of trying to do one per month this year was to be ready to do 100 next summer, get in some lotteries, but I don't know. We'll see where it goes.
That's an interesting juxtaposition, I guess. Like what's interesting to me is that I finished my 100 and any 50 I ever did because, like you said, like not quitting was not an option. Like if I had quit it, I couldn't, and I wanted to, and I thought hard about quitting during the race, but I could not deal with, I knew that I could not deal with what I would say to myself afterwards. That like, because of that mindset, it just literally was not an option, because I could not face a week later having to think, I can't believe I stopped then. But being kind, you just said that being kind to yourself is something you learned from ultra running as well. And I feel like it's really hard to be kind to yourself and have quitting not be an option. And so I'm wondering, like I don't know. I think that's probably why I haven't done another 100, because I think if I did, like I would know that I already done it once, and I would already proven to myself. And now quitting wouldn't not be an option anymore. So I don't know. Yeah. I'm curious what you think about that. And if you were to do another 100, like will you have that? Will you be kind to yourself, or will you say that this is not an option to quit? I can't do it.
Well, in that same talk, I talk a lot about how important and pivotal I think the moment when you consider quitting is. I think it can't be a light decision. It can't be something you make on a whim. It needs to be a long decision that's thought through. And if you don't quit, but if you do, you got to let it go. Like you can't like sit and ruminate in it. You need to make sure that it's the right choice. You need to think it through. It cannot be a rash decision. But if you do make that choice, you have to accept it. You have to be okay with it. You have to release it, and you have to move on. You can't, I think, at least for me, you can't sit and ruminate in it. It's not, I don't think it's healthy or productive. I think big goals is also really important. I mean, I like set a goal of running an ultra per month for the year, but it was just on my own. I was not doing organized races. There was no date. There was nobody really who was holding me accountable. So I think for lots of reasons, I probably should have seen from the get-go that this was a great candidate for quitting.
Yeah.
Which I don't know that I'm quitting. I mean, I might like get back after it and pound out one a week for a couple months, this fall. We'll see. But yeah, I think that's a really good point.
I also, I've done a lot of those. I'm going to run an ultra a month goals. Not that specific goal, but these big things like that, like months long goals that, and oftentimes they start out strong and they start out great and then they just kind of fail. And to me, it's a little different to say quit in the middle of a race when you're quitting because it's hard or because your feet hurt or you got a blister or you're chafing or whatever. You're quitting because you're just really uncomfortable and you can do it if you just switch that negativity off and you can actually finish it. That's very different to me than like, I set a goal for something that's 12 months in advance, and I'm in a very different place in my life than I was when I set that goal. You got a new job or whatever, you had a new business opportunity, things are just very different. And it's to me, like I'm much more forgiving of myself and much more kind of accepting of those types of quote unquote failures than I am of like being in the middle of a race and saying, yeah, I'm just not going to do it today.
Yeah, Ian helped me with that a lot. I remember I would have long runs that wouldn't go well, and I lied to him for weeks, and I finally one week was like, I didn't finish it. The last month when I told you it went great, I didn't finish it. I lied to you. And he was like, okay, so what? Like, so, pick up the miles on another day, like, or just it's not the end of the world. He was like, you can either force yourself through these runs when you're uncomfortable or something's hurting, and be so miserable that you get burnt out and then don't run for 3 weeks, or you can just accept that you didn't, you missed your 25-mile run by 4 miles and you can pick them up another day. It was like, that is not going to make or break your success. Now, if you're doing it every week, we need to talk about that. But if you have one bad run, fine, brush it off. Move on. It's not the end of the world, and stop lying to me.
Yeah. All right, Jeffrey, sorry.
Yeah, you can call me whatever you want. I'll do anything decent.
Thank you so much for joining. This was a lot of fun.
Yeah, it's been a while. It's so good to see y'all. Thanks again for having me back.
And congrats on the success of the movie and
thanks.
The last 5 years since we talked class.
For those like me who have been in a hole and just didn't know it existed and are going to watch it tonight, where can you go watch it? We said Amazon Prime if you have that.
Yeah, once is enough. It's on Amazon Prime. It's on it's on the Roku app. It's on a bunch of other. It's not on Netflix, but most other platforms you can find it.
Nice, and you get a little coin each time we stream it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Is that how it works?
Of course. Yeah.
So we should just put it on repeat while we're sleeping.
Yeah, leave it on.
Yeah, I won't argue with that.
There's a band.
I didn't know that's how it worked.
There's a band.
You get paid by the hour that it's viewed.
Nice.
There's a band that tried to game the system for Spotify a couple of years ago, where they put out like a 100-song album that was all silent, and they encouraged people to just like turn it on when they go to sleep. So they'd get. I think that Spotify cracked down on it, but
yeah, Amazon actually they announced that they're no longer taking documentary content unless it comes to a distributor, which we had a distributor that took the film on, but a similar thing was happening. People were making basically YouTube videos and we're submitting them, getting them approved. And at that time, they also paid per start. So it wasn't how long it was viewed. It was just if you started watching the film, the filmmaker got paid, whether you watched the film or not. And they switched to paying by the minute. For that same reason, people would put a lot of money into like the art, like the poster and the graphics. They'd write a really, really quality log line, like the summary whenever you're looking at a film. But then it would be 2 hours of the most low quality, boring crap you've ever seen. Because it didn't matter. If you started the film, like that was their goal.
Oh, that's
Cool.
funny.
Well,
All
I got
right.
something to watch tonight. Thank you for coming on. Really appreciate it. Good
Yeah.
luck.
So good
Thanks
to
for
be here.
doing what you
Thanks.
do. Keep it up. And we'll be in touch.
Sweet. Bye, guys.
All right.
Bye.
Bye.